Well, good afternoon. In the spirit of the day, I want to begin with thanksgiving, first to the Lord for protecting our community from fatalities during an incident where, frankly, I'm left wondering how we didn't suffer a significant loss of life. So I'm extremely appreciative for that. Secondly, I want to thank Governor Greg Abbott, Executive Director Toby Bush at the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, Commissioner George Bush at the Texas General Land Office, Chief Nim Kidd at the Texas Division of Emergency Management for being constantly in contact, being supportive with assistance and encouragement, and really showing their love for Texas and for our community in Southeast Texas. And don't anybody tell Governor Abbott I put him behind God. So we have experienced a very significant event, and I can confirm that the situation is improving, but we are not completely out of the woods yet. Now, I want to emphasize that just because the situation is improving doesn't mean that we shouldn't still exercise great caution. I had the opportunity this morning, and again, as I just got back from the Incident Command Center, to visit with the brave men and women who are down there as first responders, as firefighters, as law enforcement, and so forth. And I'm absolutely convinced that we have the best possible team assembled that's made up of firefighters from all of the cities in our county, representatives from the emergency management and firefighting departments of the plants, representatives from the state, and they have done a phenomenal job. I also want to thank my emergency management department and the Emergency Operations Center here that's staffed up here in Beaumont. We have representatives from TCEQ, the EPA, TPC, my Public Information Officer, and representative from the Coast Guard, the Sheriff's Department, and many others. So I appreciate the job that they're doing, coming from all parts of the state and nation to assist our area during a time of tragedy. So the areas of the plant that are impacted, that are primarily of concern, are what are called blocks 5, 9, and 10 at the TPC facility in Port Neches. Block 5 which is a spherical tank form, is in where you saw the column that took off like a rocket, landed between it and Unit 10, which is the processing unit. It's well on the way. I know I'm not going to say controlled, but being contained. There are plans that have been approved and that are being implemented right now to clear the debris that's between blocks 5 and 10 to allow the remote controlled water cannons to access that area and begin to concentrate on block 10, the processing unit. Again, the firefighters down there are just doing a phenomenal job for their community. Extremely thankful for all their work and sacrifice for us. Once they have, and if you look at the news accounts of the fire being fought and the film of that, you'll notice that the water cannons are shooting over the fires when you would think that they would aim the water cannons directly at the fire. And I think a lot of people think that the firefighters are really bad shots, and they're not. You know, their aim is not to extinguish the flame, because in a pressurized gas fire, you don't want to extinguish the flame. You want to keep it cool by shooting above it and allowing the water vapor to fall upon it. So that's the course they're taking. It's been highly effective in pressurized gas situation. If you extinguish the fire, then you have an opportunity if another ignition source comes up for it to flash back and cause another explosion. So kudos to all those firefighters out there. I think there's been very significant progress that's been made, but I want to tell you that first and foremost, my job as county judge is to keep our citizens safe. And I will not lift the evacuation order until such time as I'm convinced that it's safe for our citizens to return. So I'm going to continue to ask for, I'm going to be thankful for the resolve and commitment and patience of our community, particularly when this disaster occurred at such an inopportune time. But I also wanted to note that there's been a lot of speculation and flat-out misinformation on social media. So please know that the Jefferson County Office of Emergency Management's Facebook page and Port Nature's response are the only real avenues of obtaining information about this disaster that's reliable. We are going to meet early tomorrow morning at the Incident Command Center down in Port Neches near the plant. At that time, we'll look at the progress that they've made overnight, and they have been working 24/7, and we'll make a decision at that point in time about the potential for lifting the evacuation order, but that's certainly not a commitment at this time. I also want to note that 24/7 monitoring has been carried out, air monitoring, and that all of that has shown that there are no contaminants in the air that are harmful to human health. None of the butadiene plants butadiene that was on the plant scene were impacted by this explosion. All the tanks are on the northeastern side of the plant and are not impacted. The only butadiene that was released was most likely consumed in the flames and within the processing units in Block 10. So again, I want to thank you. I'm thankful and proud to be from Southeast Texas and to be able to represent you. It's an honor.
All right, with that, we're going to take a few questions. We're going to give precedent to local outlets. This is not a competition to ask questions. We're going to do this order. With that, we'll go to some of the local outlets.
Either for the judge or the mayor, obviously, Port Neches does seem, everybody seems to have adhered, a lot of people have adhered the call to evacuate. The cities seem low in population, but there are folks that stayed, and today, folks that are going in. Obviously, it's a challenge to stop that, but what is your message at this point for those folks who are trying to make it in? They obviously feel, oh, it's okay, and are going in. What's your message to them?
I'm going to let the mayor answer this because it's primarily his law enforcement that's responsible for enforcing those orders.
Thank you, Judge. Well, the reason we put this in effect, and I support the judge's decision because you understand it's the judge and the mayor's decision. We have to jointly do that because the county and the city are separate in the sense that I could have said, well, I'm not doing that, but it'd be crazy to do that. Getting back to your question, the thing of it is we really can't keep people from their homes, but we can say you need to use caution because especially people with respiratory problems, etc. KOH, I've got you covered here. You need to use judgment and caution. So I can say that I can thank the state for sending in their assets, the Texas Department of Public Safety, the Sheriff's Department, police, Port Neches Police are vigilantly running up and down the streets, protecting the property of our citizens. I need to thank the citizens of Port Neches for understanding and being cautious and being responsible with themselves and their families, and they've been doing that. The ones that are coming back, use caution, shelter in place, be responsible. That's what I ask them to do. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
I also wanted to mention that one of the issues that I've seen come up time and again on social media is the fact that there are citizens that have concerns about why foam's not being deployed at the site. And there's a very good reason for that, and that's that foam is appropriate for ponding fires. For instance, if you had a hazardous substance that was burning on the top of a pond, foam would be appropriate in that instance. It's on a one-dimensional object. On a three-dimensional structure, it's not appropriate, particularly those that are hot, and the foam would just go off of it. And the other reason is that we don't want to put these high-pressure gas fires out. We want them to burn out. And that's the tact that our talented and brave firefighters are utilizing, and it's having the desired effects.
And why is that? Why burn it out and allow more smoke in the air?
Well, you'll probably see as they move the water over the processing unit on 10 that the smoke's probably going to start to turn from black to gray, and you'll probably see less smoke. You already have since this morning, but and of course it's done 180 degrees since it started yesterday morning at 1 in the morning. It's moved around to the west, and there are new plume models coming out as we speak. But if you put it out and it's under pressure, it encounters another ignition source, backfires, and has an explosive effect. So we don't want any more explosions.
Jacob, the butadiene was burned off in the initial release. What are the chemicals? Do we know which ones are being burned off now and are the source of the fire?
We don't know. We know that they have butane, raffinates, and but we don't know which ones were in which tanks, and because a lot of those are electronic, and with the loss of power at the plant, they didn't have the ability to make that determination. But what we can say is that based upon the monitoring data, which is going on throughout Jefferson County and in parts of Orange County, that we've not had any hits. The same can be said for the Port Arthur Fire Department, who's doing their own monitoring. They've not had any hits on any of their equipment for volatile organic compounds or for butadiene.
Could we clarify what exactly actionable levels mean when we're talking about those VOCs?
Yeah, different governmental organizations like NIOSH and OSHA and so forth, they have threshold value limits for exposure, 1/2 a part per million, 5 parts per million, and so forth. And then they have different levels for long-term exposures. And we've not gotten to any of those levels based on the testing that's been done so far, even for acute exposures.
And what kind of VOCs were those in the air that were detected throughout the afternoon yesterday at 0.1 parts per million, which is 100 parts per billion, right? Was that formaldehyde?
No, I've not known of any. I've not known of any hits for formaldehyde. One of the things that it was of concern yesterday, which is no longer an area of concern, are the chlorine towers out there that are used in their cooling units, and those chlorine units have been isolated and are no longer a concern for the community.
VOC doesn't say what it is. What is that?
No, it could be and again, what I said yesterday evening, I've got a liberal arts degree and a law degree. I'm not a chemical engineer, but I know that.
Can we hold off 1 second? If we have any more public safety questions from local media to ask, I would like to do that just so the public's informed about.
Either county or the mayor. I was over in the city today, and businesses that are still closed. What is your advice to those small business owners who are frankly concerned about their livelihoods and how it's going?
Well, I think that most of them would not have been open today in any event. For some of the national retailers, tomorrow morning might not be as black a Friday as they wanted, as far as the bottom line's concerned. But you know, we'll be meeting in the morning and making a decision, and we're going to do everything in our everything that we possibly can while taking public safety into account to make sure that lives can return to normal as soon as possible.
Okay, we have one more local question.
I know, TPC put that hotline as far as, damages to homes, but now you have the added thing of folks, the cost of evacuation, whether hotel expenses and stuff like that. Can they call that hotline to report those costs that families are incurring now because of the evacuation?
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon. I guess it's afternoon. I'm a little punch drunk. Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving. Yes, Angel, to your question, any claims that the displaced families and impacted folks of the community want to report certainly can do that through the number. And I'd like to go ahead and give the number once again to everyone. The number is 1-866-601-5880. 1-866-601-5880. The number is also posted, and we have actually created a website for the response. The website address is www.portnachesresponse.com. Again, www.portnachesresponse.com. I'm sorry, yeah, my name is Troy Monk. I am the Director of Health, Safety, and Security with TPC Group.
Judge, with the way things are going right now, do you think, or do you guys have a desired date for when you think that this may be contained and the evacuation order may be lifted?
I think that it is contained right now in the sense that there are almost all of the fires now are pressurized line fires as opposed to fires that are impinging on vessels. So that's great news. But until they have the opportunity, the smoke has shrouded Block 10, the processing units, and until they're able to get better imaging of that, and they're quite just 100 feet from it, and until they can get a handle on those fires within that processing unit, where some of the chemicals have come together, the various feedstocks for their end product, we're not going to feel comfortable lifting the evacuation order. But as I said, we will be meeting early in the morning. The mayors and the police chief, fire chief will all be there. We'll review the drone footage that will be taken at first light tomorrow morning, and a decision will be made as to go or no go.
Couple questions with the mayor. We had a chance to talk with some folks who are part of the evacuation order, and so they had an impromptu, Thanksgiving meal at a hotel. And there was word circulating that, they could potentially be out of their houses for, they were tossing around the number of 10 days. Right now, do we have any idea on when these folks can go back home?
Well, that's what the judge was just really talking about there. As of right now, we're in a containment mode. We're going to assess again tomorrow morning at 8:30. Our hope is to lift that as quick as we can. Trust me, we want everybody back in their homes as quick as they can get in there. So, I'm very cautiously optimistic, if that's a term I can use, for tomorrow, but I don't want people going out saying the mayor said we can go back on Saturday. I'm just saying I'm cautiously optimistic. And so that's saying you can maybe come back tomorrow, maybe not. 10 days, I can say comfortably that I don't think it will be 10 days, because TPC has done an excellent job in attacking this event. And I think it's very important to understand, we think of fires as a house fire. This is not a house fire. This is a chemical refining fire, and it's fought differently than a house fire. A house fire, you put the water on it to put the fire out. In a chemical or a refining fire, you cool the system and let the product in the line or wherever it may be run out and burn off, because that's the best way to do, because now you're burning the product and it's not getting into the air. And so that's the difference. So the TPC has done an excellent job in their plan that they have to attack this, as the judge mentioned, through these different sectors. They have to approach it one at a time, because there's boots on the ground and they have to protect the lives of those men and women that are boots on the ground there at the unit. So that's a long way to say, I'd love to be able to, the judge and I, to agree that tomorrow, when we assess it, we're getting information that we feel comfortable enough to say, we're comfortable enough to tell the media, tell people to come home. But at the same time, his responsibility and my responsibility to the citizens of the city of Port Neches is safety first. TPC shares the same values that we do when it comes to safety first. And so it won't be lifted until we're comfortable, or I'm comfortable, that the citizens are going to be safe coming back in. And it's difficult to lift an order when there's black smoke coming, because the citizen doesn't understand what that is. They don't understand all the intricacies of that black smoke. They just see black smoke, and I don't want them frightened. And so we'll lift it as quick as we can. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I know it does.
Yeah.
And the other question I have was, I know it's still early on, but is there any idea as to what could have caused this?
No, I'm gonna let TPC answer that question. I don't get in. I just protect the citizens and let them get into their.
Yeah, I'm just going to say no. There's no idea right now, nor are we concerned with that. There's going to be ample time after the fire is suppressed to study the cause and to assure that our community is safe in the future and that it never happens again. And that certainly will be the focus of our energies at the appropriate time, but now it's not that time. Our focus now is suppression, getting families back in their home. Our mission objectives have not changed. Number one, protect the lives of our citizens. Number two, protect our environment. Number three, suppress the fire. None of our operational objectives at this point are to determine the cause of the event. That'll be our next objective.
I have a question for Troy Monk of TPC. There's a lot of
I also want to mention, after the mayor's comments, TPC has done a great job through their personnel. They're subject matter experts on the tank farms. They're subject matter experts on the processing units. But they have been aided, supported, and propped up by our local firemen from all the cities and the plants. They've done an amazing job.
So my question to you was, I know this is a difficult time in responding, of course, everything that's happening, but there's a lot of reports online circulating about past violations the plant has had over the past 10 years with the Clean Air Act. Online, there's just a lot of reports, pointing fingers about past violations and possibly this being accumulation of, those types of violations. What's your response to the, general public that is looking online for answers as to why this may have happened?
So again, let me get to the first part of the question regarding the past violations. I personally can't speak to that. I'm not in plant management there. I'm in the corporate office. I can get someone to follow back up with you regarding details for those violations. Going back to cause, I'm going to echo what was said before. Our focus right now is containment and ultimately ending this event, including getting folks back into their homes and resuming their normal lives. Life safety life safety remains our focus in this event. It always has and will continue to remain a tenet of our approach as we're trying to get this resolved. I do want to share, we've gotten a lot of credit, and I can't allow TPC to take all the credit. This has been a unified approach. We currently have over 20 local, state, and federal agencies aiding in this event. That's 20 separate entities that are helping us resolve this issue. And we could not be successful without the support of everyone involved.
Has the company been contacted CSB since it announced that it was sending people here?
I do not know for sure. I do know the CSB process is normally to reach out initially. I cannot confirm whether or not the CSB has made a decision officially to get themselves or insert themselves into the process. They are an after the fact type organization, so they would aid in the investigation process, which ultimately we will conduct with one thing in mind, and that is to figure out what did happen and to put things in place to prevent it from ever happening again.
I also have a question for Judge Brannick. I talked to some folks today, and
Speak up a little bit.
I talked to some families today that spent the night in the Red Cross Center at Ford Park, and I even talked to a few people that said they had trouble getting there. One man said he had to walk. Are there resources available for people, especially if this is an extended stay, to get to that shelter?
Well, of course, there's Beaumont public transportation, but typically transportation is provided by the individual cities to those who are elderly or infirm, and those without transportation. So normally that's how we do to get them to their point of refuge or wherever they can house themselves during an evacuation order, but we typically do not provide Uber services like that to move people around town.
I saw a Tascasita Fire Department evacuation vehicle going through the neighborhood near the plant. Is that just for people who may want to ride to a center or a shelter?
I do, and there are so many, I think I neglected to mention the Texas Department of Public Safety, who's been, the governor worked with them to assist us to make sure that our evacuated neighborhoods were safe, and that there's no looting going on or any gang activity, so we're appreciative of them and their assistance. The Tascasita vehicle, I'm unsure about that.
What about any updates on the folks who were injured yesterday at the plant?
All the available information to me, and some of that's protected by federal privacy laws, is that everybody was treated and released and that there are no significant injuries.
Still 8 people, right? 8 people.
That's correct.
Now, yesterday you didn't have a number on the number of homes damaged as far as door frames and glass. Any updates on that?
No, the emergency management departments and in the individual cities will do assessments after the fact. All of our focus so far has been on public safety and our mission objectives.
We're gonna take one last question, Angel.
Mayor, it might be too early, but have you gotten any reports, either from the police department or the sheriff's office, of any incidents of lootings, break-ins in Fort Neches or in those areas overnight?
No, there were none in Port Neches. I made it very clear last night, I have zero tolerance, and the Department of Public Safety, the Sheriff's Department, and my Port Neches Police Department understand what that means. We did have, my police chief reported that we did have a stop last night after curfew, and that's why we put a curfew in, to give them an opportunity a cause to stop a vehicle, and there were some illegal substance in the car. I don't know anything about it other than that. I try not to know too much about their information in case someone calls me about it, but that's the only one we have. And I want to say that the curfew being in tonight, the curfew will still be on tonight, and that I'm again telling anyone that wants to come to Port Neches, think twice, because we will ask why you're there, and we will not put up with anybody bothering the property of our citizens. Zero. Thank you for asking.
It was touched on real quickly, but I did want to ask, does the threat remain for yet another blast?
Say that again.
I know you touched on it when you started speaking, Jeff, but is there still a threat tonight of another blast?
Well, that's why we continue to have our firefighters fight the fire. That's why the water's still going on it, because there still exists a threat. Sure. But it is contained. I can't say that it's controlled. And whenever I can say that it's controlled, then I'll feel that the community's safe from another explosion.
Okay, thank you guys. We appreciate you.
TCQ. We want to ask, is there a TCQ representative? EPA.
What's the question?
Regarding the VOCs that were detected throughout the afternoon yesterday, what sort of VOCs and what was it?
So the air monitoring equipment that we use, and we actually have, with all the agencies, about 20 different teams that are doing air monitoring on the ground in the community. The air monitoring equipment that they use, it just measures VOCs. We didn't get any detections above 5 parts per million in the VOCs. If we had, then we can look at other particular analytes, but 5 parts per million was our action level.
Okay, but 100 parts per billion was detected yesterday, according to
Right, that would be 1 part per million, correct.
which was a harmful level, nose cancer.
The action level is 5 parts per million for VOCs.
Can I get your name, sir?
Sure, sure. Adam Adams, EPA Region 6.
All right, thank you guys, we appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving.